drop it down now. Brothers and sisters, the 21st century is going to be a time that's going to test black people like no other point in history, because the 21st century is going to determine if the nightmare that you never thought could happen is about to occur. Is going to determine whether or not black people wind up returning to the fields. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That is the ramifications of everybody else squadding up. Don't you all understand? That's what this is all about. That's what this has always been about. All of this has been about determining who's going to be out in the fields. Everything. All of this is about finding out who's going to be out in the fields and who's going to be in the house, living in the shade, enjoying their life. That's what all of this, racism, slavery, plantations, segregation, Jim Crow, and now the new Jim Crow, white supremacy. Brothers and sisters, that's what it was always about. And that's what it's still about today. It's about finding out who's going to be in the fields. It's about finding out who is going to be in the fields. And by the way, don't fool yourselves into believing that robots are going to be able to solve all that, because it is much cheaper to give birth to children than it is to build robots. And as the robots become more sophisticated, it will become even more expensive. Having people has always been the cheapest way to get labor. People have always been and will always be the cheapest and most cost-effective way of having labor. Always. Always. So, even if they do have robots, robots will only perform specific tasks. Believe it or not, in the most incredible and ironic twist of fate, the dirtiest work will not be performed by robots. Robots will take on higher end functions. It will still be people who do the dirtiest work, because people are the cheapest. That's the way it's always been. This fight has always been about determining who is going to be doing the dirty work and who is going to sit back and enjoy and reap all the benefits. That's what it's always been about. Always. Remember, the money will control everything. The money will control that. And in case you all didn't notice, if you don't believe me when I say that, ask yourself a question. Are the new gaming consoles that are out cheaper than the old ones or more expensive? Ask yourselves that. Are the new gaming consoles cheaper or more expensive than the old ones? Are your new televisions cheaper or more expensive than your old ones? Your new camera equipment cheaper or more expensive than the old ones? Your new computers, are they cheaper or more expensive than the old ones? We can go down the list from your cell phones to everything else. And as a matter of fact, as you all know, they don't actually sell the Xboxes for a profit. How many people here know that they do not sell Xboxes for a profit? How many people knew that? How many of you know that? How many people here know that the Xboxes are not actually sold to make a profit? How many people know that? Xboxes have always been out there for the same reason. because that's the hardware that you need in order to buy the games. Now I'm not a gamer. I'm not a gamer, but my gamers know that. My gamers know that the Xbox itself was not intended and isn't for making money. My gamers know that. The longtime gamers, some of you newer people don't, but the gamers know that. Today they are spending upwards of $30 to $50 million for every major Xbox game. Call of Duty, the war games, Halo, the top tier games, Devil May Cry, if anybody remembers that, Final Fantasy and all that stuff, Grand Theft Auto. Those games cost upwards of $40 million to make. Activision spends upwards of $40 million. That is why those games cost you $50 and $60 and $75. But the game is worthless if you don't have a console on which to play it. And if they were selling the Xboxes for a profit, those systems would be closer to $800. The costs have to remain relatively close to manufacture, simply because they have to make sure that the games get in your hands. And Microsoft makes money that way. That's where the real money comes from. The Xbox is a way of dominating the video game landscape. It's done pretty good so far. Sony is making a big comeback, but you get the idea. That's the real point of doing this. So what I'm telling you is that history and time have taught us that these things get more expensive, not less. They get more cost prohibitive, not more. And as time goes on, it's only going to get more expensive. So robots are not going to be your way out of this. People. It's always going to come back to the people and whether or not we are able to keep them subjugated. That's what it was always about. That's what it's always been about. Rob Wick said it. Google gives away Android. That's right. Sophisticated operating system for cell phones, and yet Google gives it away. It's always been about people. It's always been about determining which people will live in the house and which people will be forced to live in the fields. That's what the 21st century is coming down to, has come down to, is. It's not on its way there, it is there. And you will have to decide, will you be one of the people who lives in the house, or will you be one of the people who lives in the field? Are you going to sit here and keep begging to be determined as a human, to make them feel safer with you? Or are you going to demand the respect and consideration and say, no, you will respect me as a black man on black terms? And I will respect you as a white man, as a Hispanic, as an Asian, as an Arab, as an Oriental, on white, Hispanic, Asian, Arab, Oriental terms. I will respect you as you are. That's the question now. It's time to choose.